Hello, friend. Thanks for joining me for another book chat. Today, let's spend a few minutes with Emma by Jane Austen. This work of fiction was originally published in 1815. It's the third of the Jane Austen novels that I've read and chatted here on my channel. I previously chatted Sense and Sensibility as well as Pride and Prejudice. So, yes, I have enjoyed these Jane Austen novels very much. I listened to this book in an audio format and I enjoyed that as well. So Emma's, probably a very familiar story to many people, mainly through the several adaptations that have been done of the book for TV series as well as for movies. One of my go-to movies, one of my comfort movies, I have certain comfort movies that I can go to like when I'm not feeling well and I just want to put something on that and watch something that's familiar and just makes me feel comfortable, comfy, right? Um, an example would be Bond movies, especially the Daniel Craig Bond movies. The Lord of the Rings trilogy would be another one. Anything with Humphrey Bogart in it for some reason, especially The Big Sleep and The Maltese Falcon, but others as well. And then some Jane Austen adaptations. The 1940, I think it's 1940 version of Pride and Prejudice, and the 1990s Sense and Sensibility that's got Emma Thompson and Kate Winslet in it. And then the Emma adaptation that starred Gwyneth Paltrow as Emma is also one of my comfort movies that I have watched many times. This chat, though, is going to be about the book. Although the adaptations run pretty close, many of the adaptations run pretty close to the books. Nevertheless, we will be talking about the book here. So if you're not familiar with Emma, the setting is in the time it was written, so around 1815, and we're in a fictional town, a fictional village called Highbury. And this is where Emma lives with her father, Mr. Woodhouse. And the novel really concerns the social interactions between the residents of this town, this village. And so that's kind of what we're dealing with. Emma, though, is a young woman that is I think Jane Austen, I read Jane Austen describe this heroine as being unlikable. She's likable, but she's a little full of herself. The actual first paragraph of the book says, Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world, with very little to distress or vex her. So yeah, she's lived a real comfortable life, and she's and got a high status in this small community, and she takes on a friend named Harriet Smith that she decides she's going to sort of be her mentor and sort of be her champion. And a large part of the book is set around this because Emma decides to be a matchmaker for Miss Smith. Miss Smith already has a match, a local farmer named Mr. Martin, Robert Martin, and she seems to be pretty happy with, but Emma wants someone different for Harriet Smith. Now, Harriet Smith, though, the problem here is her parents are not known. And so in 1815, this Regency era Jane Austen novel, social status and marrying well is very important. And so Harriet Smith does not have what I would call a reputable, or she doesn't have a, um, I guess a social status that would lend itself to marrying, one of the like a gentleman or a more property person. So the match with Robert Martin would be a very good match for her. But Emma really wants her to um, set her up with the local vicar, Mr. Elton. And so yeah, spoilers. So if you don't know the story, I don't want to like take away your first time experience with the story. So I won't give away exactly what happens in the book, but let's just say Emma's matchmaking doesn't quite go as she hoped. Mr. Elton's got other ideas for who he wants to be matched with, and it's not Miss Smith. So yeah, there are other characters in the book. I mentioned Mr. Woodhouse. Mr. Woodhouse is sort of a hypochondriac man. This is Emma's dad, and he sort of feels pity for anyone who doesn't live in either with him or like him. So he's kind of a comedy kind of character. And then the Westons. So as the novel opens, actually, Mrs. Weston is getting married. Mrs. Weston had been Emma's tutor and had married a local widower. And Mr. Woodhouse thinks that she's poor thing. She's just made a terrible mistake, but she's very happy. But her stepson, Frank Churchill, Mr. Weston's son, is comes to visit in Highbury and causes quite a commotion and gets in this circle of matchmaking of Emma as well. So another character that I wanted to mention was Miss Bates, Mrs. and Miss Bates. So Miss Bates is a a spinster. So she's kind of the anti Emma. She's very so I have a quote here that describes her. So let me just read that. It says Miss Bates had never boasted either beauty or cleverness. Her youth had passed without distinction, and her middle of life was devoted to the care of a failing mother, and the endeavor to make a small income go as far as possible. And yet she was a happy woman, and a woman whom no one named without goodwill. So she's very liked and loved within the community, even though her social status has fallen through the course of her life to where she and her mother she takes care of her mother in a couple of rented rooms, and they don't have a lot of resources. But you remember the quote I read earlier about Emma says Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever, and rich. So Miss Bates is none of those. She's not beautiful, she's not clever, and she's not rich. She's actually struggling monetarily. So through the course of the book, we kind of get there's this scene that happens when the group kind of goes on a picnic, and they're going to play this game, to sort of exhibit cleverness, And Miss Bates makes a remark, and Emma makes a very clever little cutting remark back, but it hurts Miss Bates's feelings to the shock of everybody at the picnic. And this sort of lesson in kindness, Mr. Knightley is a man, I don't think I've mentioned him yet, but he's very important to the book. He is a neighbor to the Woodhouse family and a longtime family friend, very tied to the family because his brother married Emma's older sister. So he's very tied to the family, but he's a very kind person. And so he is at the picnic and sort of lectures Emma on how bad she has behaved out because kindness is more important than cleverness in that sense. So yeah, another character I did want to mention is Miss Fairfax. Miss Fairfax she's some relation to Miss Bates. I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head how, but she's some relation, but she's kind of Emma's rival. So when she comes to town, she starts getting like a lot of the attention, and Emma, doesn't really like that at all. But Miss Fairfax, she eventually gets this surprise present of a pianoforte, and the little group is all abuzz on who could have possibly sent Miss Fairfax this pianoforte. So there's all sorts of like conjectures. There's a surprise reveal later on about who actually sent Miss Fairfax the pianoforte and why. So it was a lot of fun. Another thing I wanted to bring up was the mention of other novels. So I love it whenever novels mention the characters in novels mention reading other novels, right? And in this book, there are several mentions. So when Emma's trying to talk Harriet out of Mr. Martin, she says, "Well, he doesn't read, does he?" And Harriet's like, "Well, he reads farm journals and stuff, and I think he's read The Vicar of Wakefield," which I actually have read also and chatted here on my channel. So I will link to that chat for The Vicar of Wakefield down in the details. Another book that's mentioned is, well, so Harriet tries to get Mr. Martin to read The Romance of the Forest by Anne Radcliffe. I have not read this yet, but I do have it on my reading list, so it will come up at some point. But Mr. Martin hasn't read that yet, and Emma kind of uses that against him, like telling Harriet, well, he never read that book you recommended for him, did he? And she's like, well, no, he didn't. Another book mentioned here is The Children of the Abbey, and I'm not familiar with that book. I'll have to look that one up. Okay, I think I will leave the chat there rather than give away anything else that happens in the book in case you haven't read it or seen any adaptations, so that you can enjoy a first-time experience without me spoiling it for you. But I will have more. I've already actually finished. I just read Persuasion not that long ago, and I finished that, but I haven't done a chat on it yet. So I will have a chat on Persuasion, another Jane Austen novel, coming up fairly soon. So until next time, take care.